and welcome to episode 137 of the Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And we're recording this one about a week late, week after the finals. And there's a bit of a reason for that. You were not in any shape to record right after losing two finals matchups to Jake right on the same day, were you?
Yeah, it happened to coincide with the end of the quarter at work. So I actually billed more time this past week than I have billed in a single week before. And I was coming right off of a vacation too, so I kind of had to get right back into this thick of things. But I had chatted you even before the matchup was over, and I was like, this matchup has taken a lot out of me, just like managing it. I was like, I don't want to win or lose. I was like, I don't feel the need to talk about this the next day. I need a break, and you know me, I'm always like trading and I'm unhealthily obsessing over this league at all times, and I was finally like, I'm the one who needs a break from this. So it was good. I got my week off. I'm ready to dive back into this here, but I will start off here. We'll say congratulations to Jake, not only winning Dynasty, he also won Gallardo. A huge accomplishment, winning both of those leagues. This might have been, I think it would have been one thing if like one of us just kind of like blew out the other and it was like kind of like that was that. But I mean, this came down to the last at bat. I was telling you before we started recording, like all the things like throughout the week where like if one thing changed, if one player got one more out, like if X player didn't blow this save or whatever, like the matchup would have just shifted entirely. And I mean, it was an all-time matchup. So, it was insane.
Yeah, no, it really was. And I mean, you came up to a big lead that looked pretty insurmountable, and Jake did the thing that you always seem to, which is flip every single category by a tiny amount on the very last day. And it was kind of a fitting way to lose it for you.
Yeah, it was definitely a frustrating way to lose it, but hey, that's how things go sometimes. Uh,
Absolutely. And let's talk through some performances here. It was a 6-5-1 win. Both offenses, and really both teams just went off. It was a very, very worthy finals matchup. You scored 60 runs. You stole 12 bases. You hit 27 doubles, which I believe that's a playoff record.
I think it either is a playoff record or it ties a playoff record. I'll search it up while you keep talking.
Yeah, either way, you both drove in 60 plus runs. You were slightly better in the pitching rate stats, but Jake had the extra quality start. He had 91 Ks. I'm looking at some top performances from him. He had a really great week from Josh Bell. Solid week from JT Real Muto, who not only drove in 7 runs, he stole 2 bases. Only in his lineup a couple days, but MJ Melendez scored 4 runs for Jake. Good week for Bo. Matchup MVP, though, for the finals. Last year, he won the matchup MVP with Steven Kwan, leading his team in the finals. This year, it's going to go to JD Martinez, another surprising guy. I know a lot of us wrote JD off at the start of the year. He finishes the season with a 572 slugging percentage and 33 homers. Like, who would have thought? 103 RBIs. In this week, he drove in 12 runs with a 500 on base. I hit 5 home runs. Jake needed those. And he needed every single one of those 12 RBI to beat you. And that's really how he got it done. On the pitching,
Want to hear something funny about JD Martinez?
yeah.
Trade 243. Big League Yellow Champs has agreed to trade Zach Greinke, JD Martinez, or Elvis Martinez, Robert Poisson, and Andrews 2022 second to Jake for George Springer, Max Muncy, Johan Oviedo, and Luis Angel Acuna.
Would you
So
still?
I
I
am the
think
reason.
objectively that's a win for you, but would you still do that trade knowing it costs you a finals?
Oh, I mean, it's tough, right? Because Muncy was a big reason why I made it to the finals in the first place. Springer turned into Zach Gallen, who was a big reason that I was in the finals. Luis Angel Acuna eventually turned into Ryan Helsley, and I turned Helsley later into a 2026 first round pick. And that 2026 first round pick uh, is now owned by you uh, in the Adley Rutschman deal. So it's basically own Adley Rutschman or have a championship if you really want to break it down all the way. Uh,
I feel like we would have that first rounder would have
it,
we
it,
just would have used a different first rounder.
yeah, I mean, playing the what if game is fun, but it's also like, hey, if you're going to play the what if game from a trade all the way back in 2020, like it changes so much of how we approach things. So I mean, you don't know how things end up.
No, absolutely. Anything could have happened here. Jake had some good pitching performances from his former Reds, Gosman and Castillo. Both pitched very well. He had a great start from Blake Snell, who somehow, yeah, only walked four guys in 7 innings, but which is pretty good for him. But he allowed 0 hits as part of that. Weird season. Um, Good job out of the bullpen for Jose Alvarado picking up 2 saves. He was a
He
uh,
was streamed too. That wasn't
he
even
was
like
a stream. Yeah, I picked him
wasn't even
up.
like him for a while. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a great stream.
yeah, picked him up on Thursday, dropped him on Saturday, and that one saves for him. So
Jake,
just
yeah,
crazy these little things.
I will say that that is one thing that made a difference. Jake did do a better job of bullpen streaming than I did. I did have some effective streaming, but like not to the level of efficiency that Jake had. And that's
Hmm.
one of the little things that made a difference. Um, but I mean, look, like I mean, these are fantastic weeks for both of us. Like, I mean, how many times do you lose when you put up 60 runs, 61 ribbies, and a 3.25 ERA, right? It's just it takes another monster performance to do that. And Jake and I just been putting up monster performances all year, and I mean, he was able to get me there. I got him in the regular season twice in good matchups, so he was able to get me when it counted. So uh
Hmm.
just a tough one all around, but yeah, kudos to him. It's a great performance.
Absolutely, very good performance. Looking at your team, your matchup MVP had you won probably would have been Castellanos, who hit 5 homers, drove in 11 runs, also stole a base. You got 6 doubles from Adley without any homers, which is kind of wild. Good week from Albies. Good pitching week from Zach Gallen and from Kyle Bradish, Braxton Garrett. You kind of got let down. A couple of your big bats. Nolan Arenado went 0 for 10 in your lineup, so that kills. Really rough week from Pete Alonso, which hurt you. And a rough week from Trey Turner as well. Though he did pick up a couple of steals, but you were going to win steals anyway. So a rough week from a couple of those guys. And Danny Coulomb, however you want to say it, blew up in relief as well. Could have maybe picked up a matchup stealing hold.
He came in a 5-1 game and like had the I think it was Cleveland they were playing that week. Had Cleveland scored one more run, that would have been a hold. And that's kind of what I was gambling. Um, should have gambled on the other Orioles lefty, CNL Perez, another former Red, because he got a save. Um, but yeah, solid performances all around from a lot of guys on my team. I mean, um, but just not enough at the end of the day. So it's just how it goes.
Yeah, it really just kind of happens that way. But it was one hell of a matchup. You both used all 8 of your ads. I think Jake, yeah, you said kind of used his guys better, particularly with that Alvarado stream. Uh, yeah, he did some great work with his pitching. He got a well timed Colin Poche hold as well. One of my go tos this year. So definitely some great bullpen work from Jake this week.
No, no, absolutely. No, he did a great job, and yeah, that's about all I have to say about this matchup. Like I said, congrats to Jake, fantastic season. You know, he'll be on here in a little bit for an interview where he'll put it in his own words. But you know, I'll talk about my team briefly. I mean, you know, definitely not the ending I wanted. Um, but I mean, I put up a fantastic season. I mean, it was fun until the end. And I know, you know, you know, every season I don't win. I think Eric was on a couple weeks ago and he said, you know, at the level that he's performed in the past, you know, having won a championship, it's, you know, every season in which you're not winning a championship feels like a failure. But you know, kind of taking a silver lining out of all of this, you know, it was an exciting year. It's been an exciting 6 years. I mean, I have a championship to my name, two other finals appearances, three semis losses, you know, only team to make the playoffs each of the 6 years. And, you know, and not just making the playoffs, I've been at least in the semis each of the years. So I know that some of the guys on my team are getting a bit older, but I've also just over the past calendar year, if you look, guys have acquired who are 28 or younger, right? Adley, Ozzy Albies, Saya Suzuki, you know, Jordan Westberg and Colton Cowser came up. Zach Gallen I acquired, Kyle Bradish, Braxton Garrett. Right. These are Yennier Cano. I know Nestor Cortez. I know he's hurt right now, but Felix Bautista. Right. These are all guys I'm hoping could be part of a next kind of wave here as some of these other guys age out. And there's obviously a lot of great names that have still, you know, have not mentioned that I think are, you know, still set up to who are either very young and have been around for a little bit, i.e. Tatis, or guys like a Mookie Betts who, yeah, they're getting a little older, but I still think have several great years left in them. Hey, I'm really excited about this group, and the beauty of a dynasty league is I get to bring them back next year. So I'm excited to maybe make a little bit of tweaks around the edge in the off season. It's kind of what I did last off season, and you know, I'm hoping come back mostly with this core and try and compete for another championship next year. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this marks 3 years in a row that the number one seed was not the champion at the end of it all. And it's just tough. You know, you were the best team in the league this regular season, and not winning the finals shouldn't take that away. And it just, yeah, it just kind of goes to show the playoffs don't care how well you did in the regular season. You had a historically great season with the back-to-back 12-0s. You, by all logic, should have won the finals this year, but that's just not how it happens. And in sports in general, it just, the team that quote unquote should win never wins. Like in 2020, it was supposed to be you v me in the finals, and neither of us made the finals. And like even in real baseball, like the Nationals, they were like consistent contenders for 7 years, and they should have won a title one of those years. But the year they do win the title is after Bryce Harper leaves and after their window is basically already closed. Just kind of weird stuff like that.
look at the
And like
Phillies last year; they were the sixth seed in the NL. That's a playoff
exactly.
spot that did not exist like a year or two prior to that.
Yeah, and they made it all the way to the World Series. And like the Braves won in 2021.
Yeah.
This year they're way better, and they're probably not going to win this year.
Right,
They're the
and
favorites,
I
but they're
think
probably
the
not going to win this
larger
year.
right, and what I will say, and I think it's slightly more nuanced, right? Because I don't want it to say it as like, oh hey, like, you know, the whoever did actually win isn't deserving, because Jake was very deserving of winning.
Oh no, of course not.
It's not like that, but I think that the point that that should be taken out of what you said is, hey, like I played 21 fantastic regular season weeks and then a great semifinals matchup, right? I won 17-4-1 over that span. And that or sorry, I was 17-4 and then 18-4. I went 18-4 over that span. Um, you know, those 22 wins or not 22 wins, those 22 weeks, suddenly, don't it's not like they don't count, they don't matter. Those were still awesome performances I put up, like you said, the back-to-back 12-0s. I didn't win the one in the end, but I played every playoff team multiple times and was able to rack up some really big wins over the course of the season, so yeah, it doesn't change that happened. The end might not be there. I might not be sitting here at the trophy, but I can, sit here knowing that I put together a really awesome season, yet again, and that I've still positioned myself very well, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure that other people have different opinions of it, but I like to think I position myself very well over the next, at least 3 years to, still compete for another championship. I think some
Yeah,
people,
absolutely. And
yeah,
there's really only one way to find out. We'll see.
yeah,
Uh, you're certainly going to get back here, and you're going to win another title, and it's probably going to be a year where you were worse than this in the regular season. Maybe you'll win the title as the 4 seed, and that's just kind of how it goes.
yeah. No, I will say this isn't the first time that I was the top seed and lost in the finals. So, and I'm trying to think of other instances, but of other teams. But yeah, it's that's just how it goes sometimes. I'm at peace with it. So
I mean, look at Tom Brady. He's won 7 titles, but in his best season ever, he lost to the Giants.
yeah.
Like, yeah, the playoffs are weird, legacies are weird, and the team that's supposed to cruise, or not even cruise, no one, because it was very, very tough. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Uh, Jake had a great team too, and he won. And one of these years, he's going to have a better regular season team than this. That's not going to win.
Actually, I will say one more thing. I mean, what it's obviously the wins, the losses, the championships, all of that are great, right? But it's also the fun and the community we've been able to put together through the league. Um, so it's uh it's been 6 years of that, and I'm sure even for some of the teams who have been quote unquote less successful, I'm sure, these experiences have been very worth it for them as well. So I'm thankful that, uh, we get caught up in the wins and losses, but this is just as, if not more important. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a free league, and look at how into it we are.
Dude, I played so Cam knows I've joined multiple paid leagues over the past couple of years, and it just fizzled out my interest. I've given up the teams the next season because I can't get into it. It doesn't help that I'm getting busier with my life, but it's also like, hey, like, uh it's not the right group of people. It's not as much fun. It just it fizzles out for that reason. And it's uh it's crazy that you know well, we do just a trophy at the end of the day, right? And the trophy is great and it's a source of pride, but like uh you know I pay money for I pay money to win this league. I like pay for like fantasy resources and stuff like that, right? Like I am actively losing money to play this league every year. And I am willingly making that decision.
Yeah, I
Worth
mean,
it to me. I mean, when
yeah.
you think about it that way, right? It's subscriptions to fantasy material. It's other websites that I subscribe to. Baseball America, all of that. Like it is an active decision I make, but I think it is worth it, so I do it. And the amount of times uh, uh, like I am out somewhere and people are like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm looking at my fantasy score," or I'm sitting in my apartment while watching the Orioles game, having the fantasy cast open, and I'm like yelling at the screen. And I'm sure if somebody looked at me, they'd be like, "You need to be in a mental institution." But I mean, it is fun, it is addicting, and I wouldn't change anything. So um, it's just how it goes, and I will come back learning a lot of lessons from this year and being just as motivated this year to win or next year to win as I have been the first 6 years. I'm sure you
Mhm.
all will as well.
Absolutely. So that's season 6 in the books.
Yes.
Season 3 of the podcast year in the books. Our fourth finals that we've discussed on the podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. And we've got a big offseason ahead of us, don't we?
We do. Every off season is a big off season, but this one in particular has started out with a bang. We did the draft lottery, perhaps the last draft lottery that we ever do. Alex and Zach got the first overall pick. This is back-to-back years that Alex and Zach will have the first overall pick. Last year, their pick ended up being the first overall pick, but they did not own their pick initially.
Well,
Uh,
yeah.
they had, and I can't find it off the top of my head,
Well, they
but
traded it to EBO
yeah,
back in the. They traded that in the Goldschmidt for Machado deal uh, back in 2020 after the offseason. That was Machado, Sean Murphy, a couple relievers, and Ezekiel Duran, two Alex and Zach, which at that point was Acuna Matata without Acuna, for Goldschmidt, Wilson Contreras, Gene Segura, Shane Baz, that pick, and a 2025 first as well. And then they got it back on draft night.
yeah. So they got it back for with Cardinals pitching prospect Tim Kent or Riley Green, Connor's 2024 second, and my 2024 third. Um, had Alex pick Drew Jones like we all thought he would. Maybe that ends up being kind of disastrous. He picked Jackson Holiday instead. I think a bunch of us were surprised, and holy shit, has that worked out so far. I think Riley Green's going to be solid. I question whether he's maybe more of a better real life player than a fantasy player. I mean, obviously, it's still very early on him. I mean, I think there are a lot of Torkelson doubters this year, and Torkelson has come out swinging. But I think there is, maybe reason to suggest that Riley Green's ceiling is not as high as Jackson Holiday's, but Jackson Holiday still has to prove himself. But that is the first overall pick. I'll be really curious to see who Alex takes with that pick. And if it is a surprise like it is last year, there are a lot of worthy talents to go. We will dive more into maybe how we think the draft's going to go, kind of closer to draft day. Who knows if somebody's draft picks are going to change hands. But the
Really
second,
quick, Zane had been talking a lot about Yoshinobu Yamamoto as like his guy at 1 or 2 if he got the first or second pick. I think he would be a worthy pick there, but I kind of had the feeling that maybe he wasn't on anyone's boards that high besides Zane. Do you agree? And do you think he's maybe someone that Alex and Zach might consider at 1, or do you think they might go chalk here?
well, so they have gone international player before, kind of maybe out of nowhere. They went with Christian Vaquero. Granted, that was lower in the first round in the 2022 draft. When a lot of us thought, oh, hey, maybe they might go and get like Colton Cowser there, who I took with the next pick. It wouldn't surprise me. A team that I am actually looking out for that is a team that has a second overall pick, and that is Jake. So Jake, it is Connor's pick, but Jake has acquired that pick. Jake's looking for ready, major league ready talent. I mean, he is, coming off a championship win, right? He is firmly in a win now mode. And he may or may not have alluded off air to me that he thinks that his top two is different than other teams' top twos. So Uh,
Interesting.
I wonder if that's who he thinks. I wonder if he thinks a lot of people are focused on like the Wyatt Langfords and the Dylan Cruz and the Paul Scanes and not Yamamoto. But that's kind of who I have my eye out on potentially there. But
I
um,
think that makes sense. I mean, in the past, it's interesting. In the past, a lot of taking an international established guy in the first round has gone really poorly.
yeah,
But last year, we went 2 for 2. Rithvik took Senga, incredible pick. I took Yoshida, incredible pick. Both really worked out.
right,
Um, and maybe that'll definitely help. And Yoshida is a better prospect than either of them were. Or
right.
no, excuse me. Yamamoto is a better prospect than either of them were. So that'll be. I could definitely see him going in the top two, especially with this recent success.
Right, and then Ha-Sung Kim went fourth overall in 2021. I know it took him a little while to kind of live up to his full potential, but he has. And he did end up back on Alex's team, although I do wonder if that maybe that whole experience at the beginning kind of shies Alex away from taking an international player, but that one's going to be interesting to see. Um, Anthony is the third overall pick. And after just missing out on a Pirate last year, Anthony had the fourth pick last year, and Andrew kind of snuck in and took Terramar Johnson. I've actually Anthony had the second and the fourth pick, so he took Drew Jones and then he got Elijah Green, rather than getting Terramar Johnson at 2. He went with the player that I think people perceive to have the highest ceiling in the draft. He's not picking 2 or 4 this year. He's picking 3 instead, but I think he can get a talent just as good as he took at number 2 last year.
If Jake goes Yamamoto, that means Anthony's going to be getting either Cruz or Skeens, if that's his
Well,
favorite choice.
assuming Langford is the pick at 1, I mean, I think you could argue Cruz or Skeens could also go to number 1.
Well, no, I was thinking if Jake goes Yamamoto, that means it'd be like Cruz 1 or Skeens 1, which means Anthony gets the other
Or you're right.
at 3.
That's okay. Okay, I got you. I got you. Okay, yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, Anthony and both of those guys in most years would be like the consensus number 1 pick. So, that'll be great. After the top 3 here, we have a couple EBO picks here. So they are picking up 4 and 6. EBO came out as probably the biggest loser in the draft lottery. They had the highest odds of getting the number 1 overall pick. I know Zane and Sully have been talking about that for a few months now. I think at least one of them has come on air to talk about the potential of getting that pick. Daniel and Matt's pick, they had the worst record, but that pick ended up being the 4th overall pick. Which as an aside, if that pick would have been 1 or 2, then I would have had to send a second round pick over to Daniel and Matt. So very glad that's not happening. And that also means that the 4th overall pick ended up being the pick, along with Tanner Bibby and Alexis Diaz, that I sent over to EBO, and Andrew is part of that 3-team deal that netted me Ozzy Albi. So I am feeling very good about that right now, but maybe not as much for EBO.
Yeah, I agree. EBO really felt like, yeah, that did not go well for them. They'll still get a good prospect at 4, and it's solid one at 6 too. But they really, yeah, missed out on getting 1-2 or 1-3 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are fortunate that this is a deeper draft, because I still think that even if hypothetically like Skeens, Cruz, and Yamamoto are the top 3 picks, which I think you can debate if those are the top 3 picks and in what order. Even if they end up with like Wyatt Langford at 4, that is one hell of a consolation prize. I think there's a little bit of a drop off after that. Like I think, and I still will get into some of the players like in the coming months, but I think there's a solid top four there, and then maybe who they get at six might not be as good, but who they get at six, like I'm sure they're going to get the Tigers guy, right? Max Clark. I'm sure might fall to that range, and I know they're always happy to pick up more Tigers, so uh, it might end up working out for them. And again, the draft is a crapshoot. I mean, we all thought Drew Jones was going to be better than Jackson Holliday last year, and then look how it turned out. The Orioles and Alex were right, and nobody else was right. So, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Yuki's got the fifth pick. We kind of skipped over him. This is his fifth year in a row making a lottery pick. Every year he's been in the league, he's made a lottery pick. And outside of the year he got Marcelo Meyer at 1, he has not really made a great pick with his pick.
Has Cam Collier not been good?
He's been kind of surpassed by some guys, and he felt like kind of a reach at 6 at the time anyway. Yeah. I mean, he's been fine, but not not the most impressive. But yeah, he took Cam Collier last year, got Meyer at 1, although Lawler would have, in retrospect, been the better pick. Then Asa Lacy was a bust in 21, and then he took Akiyama in 2020.
One pick before Bobby Witt. How the hell did Bobby Witt fall to 7 in that draft?
Man, and I remember being shocked that Manoah fell to 9. I remember thinking he would have gone ahead of a lot of these other guys as well.
That whole draft in hindsight, I mean, is just so painful. Imagine being Clayton and Jake sitting there in 2020 and being like, holy shit, Bobby Witt fell to 7. They didn't even have to trade up or anything. Like, oh, that is painful. But yeah, Yuki's not made some good picks, but Yuki, and I'll go back quickly, look at some of his other picks here. Hey, he picked Robert Hassel. I don't know how Carson Williams has been doing, but he picked him in 22.
Carson Williams has been fantastic.
Has he? Okay, well, he picked Tyler Black, who's like really skyrocketing now. But I guess he's long gone off of Yuki's team. He drafted Ethan Salas last year, and I don't know how these other picks did off the top of my head, but obviously Yuki is capable of making a very good pick here, and I think he'll have some good options to pick from.
Absolutely. But yes, that's the lottery. We'll be previewing the draft a whole lot in the couple weeks beforehand. But before, we've got an interview with Jake to congratulate him and kind of talk through his season. Anything else before we close the book on 2023?
No, just it's been a great 6 seasons, a little over 2,000 days in league history now, and cannot wait and for the next 6. So it's going to be good.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's 2023. We got a lot of fun segments planned this off season, so stick around. Excited to not be on such a rigid recording schedule, but we're gonna make some great content here. And we've got one more great interview of 2023. We have Jake coming up, league winner, keeping the trophy. Gonna be great, gonna be painful for you, Sahil. But Brad.
Look, you had to sit through me interviewing you and Eric about losing in the first round, so I think it's I have to take it this time. At least you had somebody else who also lost with you. Then again, you have also lost, and you lost in a round earlier than mine, so or 2 rounds. We'll make this work. But all right. Yeah, we will. We'll see you back here for the interview.
All right, we are back now with Jake, winner of not just the Dynasty League for the second year in a row, but the first ever winner of the Gallardo Dynasty Baseball League. Welcome back, Jake, and congrats on both of the titles and both of the wins over Sahil.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very tough last week, especially in this league. That was the one I was really stressing about. Didn't think I had a great chance at one point midweek. Even on the last day, wasn't looking great, but the cards fell exactly how they needed to for me, and pulled up the victory. But obviously, congrats to you, Sahil. It was a great run. Um, I think you were clearly the better team on paper, so I'm happy that my team just pulled out the great win in the last week. But I think going forward, I'm still very worried about facing your team. You were the one team I did not want to play, and I think we proved that our teams are probably going to have a pretty close matchup anytime that we go up against each other.
Yeah, it was three great matchups this year. I mean, both regular season matchups were great. I mean, you especially in that second regular season matchup really came back there at the end, and then this time, yeah, you really pulled away with it. You already one team I was very much not hoping to face in the playoffs either. Like I knew I had taken you down in a regular season twice, but I saw what you did to me last year in the playoffs and in the regular season, and yeah, I was not looking forward to that. It was a stressful week for sure.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I feel like my team last year was consistently better, even though I had a worse record. I think I beat you all three matchups last season
You
somehow.
did. You did, yeah.
This year, the first matchup, I think it was the first week, didn't play great. Second matchup, it was 6-2 to 4, and so I just needed like a couple different categories to flip one way. And that's exactly what happened in the finals. I mean, like we can get into how close it was, and basically any starter sit that either of us made differently might have changed it, which is pretty crazy to think about. But
yeah, I told Cam off air. I was like, here's like 4 decisions I could have made differently that would have handed me to win, or not even like decisions, but also just like things that could have happened in games, like Cal Quantrill only going 5 2/3. Like Tanner Scott for me blew a save that led to an Adam Ottavino save for you, and that was enough to win saves, right? Like,
yeah,
I almost picked up Mike Clevenger in the last day, and instead went with AJ Minter. And I was annoyed with that one too, because I was like, Clevenger had just been crushing for you all playoffs, and I thought, oh, it'd be great if he was able to kind of put the final dagger the other way. But yeah, I mean, we were talking in the last segment. I mean, some amazing decision making on your end, and the streaming decisions that you made. And it's stuff like that that makes a difference.
yeah, thank you. The AJ Minter one especially. He was about to come in. I think it was in the 7th inning. The Braves scored 2 runs to make it a 4-run game, and then he came in and he didn't get the hold, and that would have gotten me the victory. I mean, some stuff. I mean, we were streaming a lot of relief pitchers, and I feel like we ended up not having that many saves and holds. So they were come by that week. I mean, I picked up Jose Alvarado and Jose Leclerc, the 2 Jose's, pretty late, and I think they combined for 3 saves and a hold. So that was huge for me. I think the one mistake, I guess you can put it, was the Brian Bayo start, I think on that Wednesday, because that really killed ERA and WHIP for me. Had like eight runs in 3 innings. And so I was kind of battling back ever since then. I think I streamed David Peterson for the strikeouts. He got 7 of them, and I ended up winning by 6. Same with Cutter Crawford on the last day, even though I picked up for the ERA and the WHIP, because I was hoping Zach Allen would blow up, but he didn't. And then Carlos Rodon with the quality start, which might have been his first of the season. He was like my guy last year. Didn't pitch all this year, but showed up on the last day, which was great to see.
Oh, and if he doesn't show up, that's another example of something that would have flipped the matchup, right? Like it was just crazy, all of those little things. And we were talking as up until the last at bat, right? I mean, like you were sitting there in a chat being like, oh, because like I had Betts, Freeman, and Muncy come up, and you're like, well, one of them's going to get an RBI, and that's going to be that. And thankfully for you, neither of them did, and I mean that.
That that would have been the most unbelievable ending to a fantasy baseball season if Freeman or Muncy hit a walk-off home run in the ninth, literally the last game of the fantasy baseball season to flip the matchup for you.
Well, I mean, even then, it was insane just how many times the scores flipped back and forth, just like within that like last like 30 minutes, hour of the matchup, and like it was kind of unique because usually you have the one Sunday night game, but like because of the weird schedule with all the rain in the Northeast, like I think there were like 3 games being played that late. And it was interesting too, because like I felt like all of our best guys were playing then. Like you had Olsen and Harris for the Braves. I had Albies. Like you had JD Martinez. I mean, went off. And of all the guys that do it too, it's him, right? He's the one who killed the Orioles for so many years, and I had to watch him kill my fantasy team. But you had him. I had my 3 Dodgers. Like it was. Like and then you had Real Muto who had the big hit. I had Castellanos and Turner going. Like it was all of our big name guys just going at once, and it kind of felt like, hey, like I'm putting my best and you're putting your best like up against each other, and it's just however it happens is just going to happen. But it just
I think I said at one point, like if we replay that last day 100 times, I win maybe 10 of them if I'm lucky. Just anything that could have flipped, even with like on base. I mean, I somehow survived a Michael Harris like 0 for 9 day for on base. Matt Olson had a big that big hit to give me the RBI lead. And I think like the 6th inning. And that ball was like a foot away from being a home run, maybe less than a foot. And I was worried that like the extra RBI there would cost me, but he still got 1 RBI from that, which turned out to be the difference.
Well, so there was a crazy like point too where like Real Muto hit a 2-run single in his game, and I was like, shit, like this is over. And then literally the next batter was Nick Castellanos, and he hit a 2-run home run that drove in him and Real Muto, and that's when I was like, all right, like maybe I can survive RBI here, but.
Castellanos and JD Martinez going toe-to-toe in RBI, and Martinez having 1 more and Jake winning by 1 RBI. It's just insane.
Well, and it's funny too, because we were talking before you got on, Jake. The reason you have JD Martinez in the first place is because I traded him to you 3 years ago.
And I think you got Muncy in that deal, right?
Oh yeah, I got Muncy, and then I got George Springer, who I turned this past offseason into Zach Gallen, and then we kind of traced indirectly the like a couple of the one of the prospects you gave me, Luis Angel Acuna, turned into like part of the return for Adley. So kind of crazy to see how that trade developed. But yeah, I mean we had opposite Dodgers there, Martinez and Muncy from that deal.
Yeah, I mean he had an absolutely insane week. Like he was having a very good season. Definitely his best probably since I traded for him from you.
Yeah.
But I mean I think he had like a 500 on base, whatever it was, 12 RBIs a lot in that week.
I swear players just go to the Dodgers and they just dominate again. Like I don't know how he does it. That was his best season since 2019.
He really stepped up for me. Especially, I mean, in a week with Michael Harris, who essentially should have been my 3rd or 4th best hitter, he did absolutely nothing. That was huge of him to step up. And also, on the last day, the one decision that I was very much regretting at one point was I was looking for an RBI stream because I had all my starting pitchers locked in. I picked up a Crawford, and then I think I had 7 relievers going. So I'm like, all right, Machado's sitting. Let's get a full lineup in there. I ended up picking up Mark Hanna because I liked his matchup better than just promoting Evan Carter, who had been hot, and he had a 2-run homer. So that I was very worried was going to cost me. Didn't bring up, my top prospect to help get the win, which would have been a nice story too. But I'm glad that didn't come back to bite me because at one point it was looking like it was definitely going to.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where it's just, especially in a matchup that's so close like this, like you look back and I know I'll have this for all off season. I'll be like, what decisions could I have made differently? And I know there are a couple, but it's hard because you have to use the best information you have at the time and just kind of recognize that it's just a crapshoot sometimes, and it's just how it goes. But I mean, I thought you managed one hell of a playoff matchup. I mean, I think you do a great job of managing overall, and there was a little doubt in my mind that if we were to rank the matchups, every single matchup in league history of all time, like this would be the unanimous number one, and it would not be particularly close. Like I'm
Are you saying this beats the matchup where you scored 13 runs and your whole team was hurt?
Yes, I would say this beats out. I would say actually, since you are here, Cam, that nice of you to speak for the first time in what feels like an hour. But to me, the previous best matchup in league history was our 2020 semis matchup, where I had the 4 quality starts in the last day, and you were going to win, but then you Darvish, hence the term. I thought that was the best matchup in league history before this, but I think this one clearly surpassed that.
Yeah, no, kind of crazy. The top 2 matchups in league history. Are you losing on some last day shenanigans and you winning on some last day shenanigans?
Yeah. No, it is nuts. But anything else you want to say about the matchup in particular, Jake, here? Or we also have questions about your kind of moving forward here, and your thoughts on the season. But anything else you'd like to discuss about the matchup?
I think it was a big decision for me to drop MJ Melendez at one point. Especially, I mean, after last season, he was looking like a top, maybe like 150 dynasty asset. Definitely wasn't very good this year. And then the one thing that really was the decision point for me to be able to drop him comfortably was that he's losing catcher eligibility. So even though he's been in my outfield all year, I was kind of hoping for him to be the replacement for Real Muto, but him just having that outfield eligibility, I felt comfortable dropping him, going for the reliever streams. I forget who exactly I dropped him for, but it might have been Alvarado or Leclerc who both helped me win the matchup. So that was kind of a tough one at the time that I'm like, all right, I hope I don't regret this one. He's a good dynasty asset, but definitely now happy that I did that.
It's one of the costs of winning is I think you have to sacrifice a player or two occasionally in a dynasty league. It's not like in a seasonal league where, hey, like this guy starts on Wednesday in the last week, I could just cut Garrett Cole now because that's when he started. He's not going to pitch again. It's a whole different way.
Also, I feel like last year, a lot of my rookies really helped down the stretch, especially like I remember Stephen Kwan was huge for me in the playoffs.
This year, MVP last year in the playoffs.
Yeah,
we were just talking about
this year, Matt McLean and Tristan Cassis, who were my 2 best rookies all year, they were both hurt for the playoffs, or at least the finals. I know McLean for more. So that, I mean, I didn't have both of them, and they were huge pieces in my offense all season. So had to make up for it. I had Ryan O'Hearn for a little while. Ended up dropping him, picking him back up. He had a terrible finals.
He was funny. He was great when he was not on your roster. Like, because you would pick him up in response to him going like 7 for 7 his first 2 games of that Astro series, and then he just like as soon as you picked him up, just decided to shit the bed.
Yeah, and he was good for me in the regular season too, so
Yeah.
I felt comfortable with him. Tommy Pham was also huge for me. He was someone who I had on my roster last year. Ended up dropping him just because it's Tommy Pham and think he had too much long-term value, but he was solid for me down the stretch. Um, for a 35-year-old outfielder who didn't have a ton of fantasy appeal, I guess he was huge for me.
You know, it was a couple of the old guys here. I mean, the JD Martinez's and the Tommy Phams of the world, and I think that's what I always hear this on a lot of the fantasy baseball podcasts, right? It's like, you can't just ignore some of these crusty veterans who are consistent and you kind of know what you're getting from them. They might not be the big flashy thing, but when it comes down to it, you kind of know what you're getting from them, and a lot of times they're the ones who are helping you win a championship.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's funny too from my second base play because I know that was like a big topic for me all season. Once I traded Glaber away, I think in April. I mean at one point I had basically no second baseman to play, and then by the end of the year I had like three viable ones with McLean, Julian, and Polanco who I traded for. Um, and then Polanco was really the only big acquisition I made for my team, I think. He turned out to be really good down the stretch, so very happy with him, especially at the price I got him for. Um, and I mean, I think I heard you guys talk about like your picks for all the different categories. I think it kind of went how we all expected. With the categories that were going to be close were the ones that I somehow flipped by one in each of them, and then you had a couple where you dominated like steals, and then eventually ERA and WHIP. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys like were looking at that and felt good about your picks,
Well,
especially with my starting pitching, how that kind of blew up at one point with the ERA and WHIP. Um,
like
I mean, I will say your pitching stats look exactly the same way your pitching stats look every week. Um,
yeah,
with 91 strikeouts, but yeah, ERA around 4. I can't say I was thinking too much about how my predictions were going or
I
that I
was.
remember what I had picked, but
I was thinking about it because as a matter of fact, like there was a while there where I was like, this is like I think I had it almost to a T exactly how it was gonna play out. And actually Cam and I did not calculate that on air. I'll run through this right now, but I'm looking through mine and it's actually looking uh pretty good. I think uh we tied holds, right? That was the one category we tied.
yeah,
Okay, so um I picked every category right, but RBIs I picked myself. Uh actually that was the only one I picked or no, I'm looking at I'm looking at mine. I picked myself to win RBIs and you won RBIs. That's the only difference. I picked everything else, including us tying holds. Every other category I picked exactly correct. That was the difference.
yeah.
And then Cam and I almost had the same picks. I purposely tried to be a little different from him, but like, yeah, I mean, we Cam also picked the holds tie. The only difference is Cam picked us to tie in home runs. But he also picked me to win RBI. So wow, Cam, we almost nailed this.
wow, look at us go.
we I mean like I said, like I made decisions thinking that this was how it was going to turn out, and I knew like and I'm sure you were thinking about this too, Jake. Like there's a couple of categories that were probably going to be really close that was going to make the difference, and it's but there's also a couple of categories I think you and I both probably thought like, hey, the other side's probably going to win it. I dominated in runs all year, so I kind of just assumed that I was probably going to win runs, and I just on the flip side kind of assumed that you were just going to out quantity me, right? Because that's just kind of how you do it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I was not worried about runs and stolen bases for the whole week. Although we ended up both having very good hitting weeks. It felt like my hitting did not do anything until the weekend for some reason. think especially there was like a half day in there where I, had maybe like 5 or 6 guys with the game on offense.
No,
But
that,
it
that
felt like
Thursday I had a full lineup and you had a half a lineup. And I was like, if I could have a big game that Thursday, I thought I'd be able to take a big enough lead, or maybe I could get a big enough of a cushion. And that didn't happen. It like we basically put up this almost identical numbers. And I was like, all right, like I kept you in it. That
yeah,
was
and I had a bunch of homers on Sunday, but I think they were mostly solo shots, so it didn't help RBIs too much aside from just kind of stacking them up. And also it's funny to see in the playoffs how much relievers matter. And there's just, I mean, I think at one point I might have had 9 relievers going in one day. And in the regular season it's 4 to 6 probably, but you just have to grind out all those hold streams, some save streams. It's just funny how that works differently in the playoffs than the regular season.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, kind of looking like how some of these relievers that like you like trusted from the get-go just like did not or not the ones that you're using in the playoffs too. So it's not like, oh, I have my stable set of guys and it's just whatever, I'm gonna roll with it, and I might add a guy or two. Sometimes it's like you're just completely redoing things on the fly. But
Yeah,
yeah.
Presley and Iglesias, I think each blew a couple of saves for me in the finals. And they were, shut down the whole season. But
Yeah, that's how it works. Iglesias is another guy for TU. I don't know if he actually recorded a save in that last week or not, but that's another thing that I'm sure made a difference.
yeah, I mean, I think I traded a first round pick for both him and Devin Williams in some
You
fashion.
you you gave me I gave you Kobe Mayo and Raisel Iglesias for Mick Abel in a first round pick. I turned Mick Abel into George Springer because I had traded away George Springer to get Mookie Betts, and then a week later got Springer back for Abel. I think that was basically a 1-for-1 deal, and then obviously Springer became Gallen, so I'm fine with that. But like uh yeah, you that trade's looking good for you, both kind of a future player.
Yeah, Mayo really
Now.
stepped up this year. He's
Yeah,
like the one you don't have anymore. Or I guess
yeah,
you don't have anymore, but
yeah. I think Mayo's gonna I think he's the one that ends up getting traded this offseason, but in real life, not in fantasy. I
yeah,
still
yeah.
keep him, but yeah, I
I will
think
probably not be trading him.
yeah, I don't see a spot for him in Baltimore, unless they want to move on from like Mountcastle, but which I don't think they really want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you guys won 101 games, right?
101.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to see.
I will say it does make the loss feel a little better where I'm like, ah, shit, like baseball season isn't over. It's like, oh, but my major league team won 101 games. Like I get to watch them in the playoffs. But yeah, it was nice to clinch it over the Red Sox too. So it made me feel like I won over you in some capacity.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, things will be different when the Red Sox go out and trade for Soto, sign Ohtani, sign Blake Snell. Oh yeah, how have we not talked about Blake Snell yet? I
Yeah,
mean,
how
that could be my MVP for the whole season.
I I'm at a loss for words. I still think that I've made my thoughts known so many times in the chat, so I'm not going to repeat everything. But like the TLDRs, I don't think this is sustainable next year, and I think there's going to be a bit of a drop. And you and I made a bet actually, $10 bet. I said that Blake Snell is going to have an ERA over 4 next season.
I'm willing to go up to 1,000 on it on the Blake Snell before ERA.
I'm maybe one day when I have a little more money in the bank, maybe not today, but that's going to be I know I feel like I make like a fun board bet or two each season. There's been the Cole Calhoun bets, and now we have Cam and I made a bet on Adam Duvall and TJ Friedel last year. This will be my bet for this year. as Daniel Jones throws what looks like it's going to be a pick six. I hope neither of you are starting him.
No Danny Dimes for me in any of my leagues.
Yeah, but
I am starting him against you, but it's not going to matter.
that matchup's over. Yeah, Blake Snell drives me nuts, and he did it in Tampa. I'm at least glad that he's not in the AL East anymore. But my goodness,
Well, he might be next year.
if he is, I'm not going to be totally mad about that because I think he's going to regress. So that wouldn't be endorsing.
I mean, I think he'll regress a little bit. At one point in the season, like it was kind of, I mean, because the last couple of years he was like a mid four. I think at one point he had like 5-something ERA. I think when I traded back for him because I originally had him on my team when I took over the team, traded him for Yordan Alvarez. I traded to get him back. I forget who I gave up. But I mean, he was unstartable at some points. And then this year he was starting off really hot, going on those, 10 strikeouts, 4 walks, somehow no run starts. And it just kind of became a bit that he walked, 10 batters a game, didn't allow any runs. And then he just kept doing it. And the bit just became reality. And he was my best pitcher. I watched a couple of his starts late. As much as it is kind of a bit how good he was and like how much he overperformed, I guess, compared to expectations, he has some of the best stuff in the league. So he can get away with walking people because his curveball is, I mean, it might have been the best pitch I watched all season. No one could touch it. And so either they took it and they walked or they swung and missed. So I feel good about Blake Snell going forward.
Well, so my thing with him was twofold. One, he hasn't been able to stay healthy consistently throughout his career, and because of the high pitch count, pitched deep into games. So like prior to this season, he's only pitched more than 129 innings once. And then also like, well, what you're saying about the stuff is why like he'll have stretches where he looks like the best pitcher in the league for like 2 months, but then he'll go 2 months like looking like total crap and unusable. And I think the difference is this year he didn't have that 2 months of crap and unusable stretch. And I just think it's going to come back at some point. Like I get that the stuff is so good, but this is what Dylan Cease did last year. Dylan Cease has great stuff and was able to put it all together for one full season, and then the regression hit and the regression to the mean hit, and it hit hard. We'll see.
To be fair, I was kind of out on Cease going into this year. So
same here.
I feel like Snell a lot better than Cease.
I think Snell from a talent perspective is better than Cease, but I also think the same reasoning for why I didn't like Cease going into the year is the same reason why I'm going to be fading Blake Snell next year. And I might be wrong about it, but
no need to fade him because I've got him in both leagues and he's staying put unless
I get
some sort of Sandy Alcantara return.
I'm used to listening to all these podcasts that talk in redraft terms, and they use fading all the time when they're talking about, because they're all talking about already who they're going to draft for next year. So, but yeah. Now we'll see. I hope you hold on to Blake Snell, and we'll see how that plays out.
I've had a lot of turnover in my rotation aside from Luis Castillo. I mean, Gosman was great for me this year, but Rodon didn't pitch, Montes didn't pitch, and he was pretty big for me at least the first half of last year. So we'll see if any guys step up for me. I might need to go out and acquire a starting pitcher.
Yeah, that's a good transition kind of into the rest of where we wanted to go here, right? Like, obviously you've won back-to-back championships now, right? So obviously what you're doing is working, but I think there's always room to improve. It sounds like the rotation might be one of those places you're thinking about.
Yeah, I think the rotation is probably the biggest area of need for just like another guy to throw in there. Unfortunately, I didn't pick up Cole Ragans. Eric had him like after that one like big start he had. I went to pick him up and he was already taken. So I kind of wish I had him like I do in Gallardo, but I have Mackenzie Gore and Lance McCullers who hopefully take some sort of step up. Luzardo was pretty good for me, but volatile. Same with Bayo. Like I hope they kind of settle in. But outside of Snell, Gosman, and Luis Castillo, I don't have anyone I can really trust for sure for next year. So I might need to go get someone. I mean, Lugo was huge for me this year. Just a solid guy who would get quality starts from time to time. Evaldi for the first half of the year, but definitely don't have like 5, 6 guys I can throw it on a weekly basis and feel good about.
I mean,
On
maybe
the
one of those guys is
side,
available at number 2 in the draft.
that so I mentioned in the chat, and I was gonna talk about this a little bit. I have 2 guys who I really want in the draft. And one of those potentially is a starting pitcher who could slot into my rotation next year. The other one is potentially a hitter who could slot into my starting lineup next year.
Nolan Schaumburg.
So I don't know if you guys have a preference on which top hitter you like. I certainly have mine, and I will mention that I might have 2 rookies from the same team in my outfield next season, but we'll see how things go.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
I think that kind of answers who you view as the top or in that top 2. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good draft. Cam and I were talking about this earlier, and I think you're set up nicely there. I mean, it's you're certainly going to have a really good option there. Cam, I've done a lot of the talking, and I know you said you came in with some questions. Is there anything that Jake and I haven't covered? I feel like we just went back to that matchup.
Yeah, you've kind of covered everything here that I had. Yeah, you really dove into that matchup. It was awesome. I guess
I told you that I was gonna let you do all the question asking, and then I'd like pipe in, and then I think I didn't let you get in the word.
That is okay. But the question I have for you, Jake, is have you re-engraved the trophy yet with your new title? Or are you gonna wait for that?
I have not yet. I need to make a trip to the trophy store. Once I do, you will be getting a video of me chugging a beer from the trophy, which I did not do last year, and I regret it. So I will be doing that this year. So watch out for that in the chat.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's a great trophy, and you're the first person to keep the trophy from one year to the next since it was made. So you can kind of make up the rules on what that means for you, but at least you don't have to pay the cost of shipping on it, at least for another year.
Yeah, that was a very expensive trophy to ship. I will say that cost me a lot of money when I had to ship it back to air.
It's worth it for every 2 years for the cost of shipping. I don't want it in for 1 year at the next. But with the 2 years, especially on the TV stand, it's got its place. I feel like my apartment would feel pretty empty without it. So that's one of the biggest reasons I'm happy about winning.
No, for sure.
Absolutely. And you will have it for another year. And if you turn it around in Gallardo, maybe you'll have a nice little Gallardo cup mug to go next to it.
I'm excited for that. That'll be interesting. I mean, I think I was telling Sahil about it, but at the end of the day, the championship in that league doesn't really matter that much for baseball because it's just one spot. Like the difference between 1 and 2 is the same as 7 and 8 in football, and so it's really about being good in all 4 sports. So as much as that championship was nice to have in baseball, we need to turn around in football quick.
That definitely felt like the undercard match of the week. Like I don't know about for you, but like I definitely did not worry as much about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how baseball is going to feel in Gallardo because football's starting and then you have all 3 other sports going at once. It's kind of just the first one. It sets your position for the whole season, but
we'll
see how it goes.
Semis is very important. The final's not as important.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you going from I think 4 2 in the playoffs is huge for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, those 2 spots are huge. But we'll see. I love the trading in that league. I love how, a rebuilding team can say like they want to sell off some football right now when it's at its highest value. They can go get some baseball for next year at a better value than they would be able to, like before the baseball season. I think it just makes it a lot more interesting in terms of like you can trade rebuilding guys in some sports and veterans and others, and I'm excited to see how that plays out when all 3 other sports are going at once, because I think it's going to be pretty chaotic, but it should be fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. And football really seems like it's there's a lot of interest in the Gallardo football this year. And I feel like basketball, like no one really cares about the Dynasty Basketball League, so this has a chance to kind of overtake it as the number 1 M-SABR basketball league.
I think the bar was pretty low. But even in football, like I see more people talking about Gallardo football than Dynasty football, and I don't know if it's going to overtake hockey, but or Gallardo hockey will overtake Dynasty hockey. I'm not counting on it, but I mean, it has certainly taken our interest, and it has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think baseball is kind of just the warm up for it. Gets the juices flowing a little bit, and then you just have everything hit at once. And I think the trades are going to get pretty crazy with all of those, and like different teams competing and different teams needing certain pieces. Like the thing for football right now, like I kind of want to trade for someone, but Joe Burrow isn't doing anything, and we just essentially need him to start playing football for us to win games. So
he's got to get that healthy.
It's been frustrating so far.
Yeah.
I feel good about especially hockey, but then also basketball. So we'll see if like even if we finish 7th or 8th in football, if we can somehow get like top 2 spots in the other sports, if that will be enough.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of leagues to be excited about. I mean, that 1 week where we had Gallardo Dynasty Draft and the trade deadline in the baseball league and a lot going on. We're just super lucky to have all these great leagues going on at once, and at least Jake, for now, you're the winner of 2 of them back to back. So congrats on that. Any other quick words before this Zoom call cuts out?
Nothing for me. Excited to take back the baseball trophy. We'll see if someone wants to challenge for it again next year if it's going back to Sahil, but feel good, and I'll try to make it a 3-peat.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks again. And yeah, excited for another off season in this league going into year number 7. We will see you then.
Yep. See you next time.
I manage my fantasy baseball team better than I manage my anger these days. And I'd trade my best pitcher for a draft pick and a picture of the president writhing in pain. It's a weird thing to wish for, but I can't stop wishing, refreshing the browser someday. If I live long enough and the world doesn't end, my wish will come true in a way. And he'll die like we all die in pain or sleep.
This podcast is good.